how is the GCSE structured? How are we going to save our time? How do we manage our time? How do we structure the GCSE English language paper? Is an examination, so you need to be strategic. So how do we strategize these exam papers when we are in the exam hall? How do we manage our time? And again, what are the teachers expecting us to do? What is that? What is the AO2? What are the teachers, people who are going to mark this your script, what are they expecting you to do? That's what we're going to be learning. Also, we are going to be looking at the 2026 update. Some of these questions have been reviewed, and 2026 there's a slim difference between the previous GCSE papers, the English GCSE paper. There's a difference between the previous English GCSE papers and the recent one in 2026. So we are going to be looking at the update, the changes in words and questions also in today's class. Okay, let's look at how we can strategize our papers, how we can structure our paper when we have the exam, when we are in the examination hall, when we are writing. How do we make sure that we use our time effectively and we get good grades? That's the major thing, good grades. So let's start. So I will always suggest that when you get your question papers, you get your paper, I would suggest that you just flick through the questions. First flick through the questions. After you flick through the questions, then probably you can now flick through the friction extract. You have a total time of 1 hour 45 minutes, except you are giving extra time. If you are giving extra time, you can still find a way to strategize and plan your time. But the normal time which I'll be working with today is 1 hour 45 minutes to answer this question for section A and section B. So before you answer your question 1, make sure you flick through the question. We have 10 minutes out of the 1 hour 45 minutes. Use 10 minutes to flick through the questions. Flick through the questions and then go back and flick through the passage. Just skip a little and read the passage. Just skim through it, read it, and just know what is going on in that passage. I don't want you to panic or having tension and then jumping from one question to another question, then checking all the extract. No, there's no need for that. Use 10 minutes to flick through your extract and flick through your questions 1 to 5 so that you can have an idea of everything. Then you will not start your question 1 properly. Your question 1 involves you giving 4 statements. They will give you a line, probably line 8 to line 10 or whatever line they give you. Read through those lines and then bring out the 4 statements that they want you. It could be a description of something or someone. Get your questions right and then write 4 statements. Question 1 is really easy peasy. I think it's easy. The only issue, the only way you can miss this question is if you're not writing a complete sentences. If you're giving one word answers. You don't give. It's an English exam, it's an English language exam, so you need to write in full sentences with your full stop attached at the end. So if you're giving one word, no, it doesn't mean it should be so long. Bullet points with your full stop attached at the end. Simple sentences is how you answer question 1. 4 statements, that's 4 sentences for question 1. Another way you can miss question 1 is when you do not get the right answers from the extract. That is why I said you flick through your extract for 10 minutes before you attempt question 1. Flick through all your questions so that you start having ideas and then you could be fast. Also, while attempting question 1, if you know that you don't know how to manage your time well, you can always start with question 5. I will tell you the reason why. The reason why is because you might not have enough time. I don't know how to manage your time, and question 5 carries the highest mark. So you can start from question 1 and land in question 5 rather, and then land in question 1. But my advice to you, my very best advice to you is when you're doing question 1, make sure you get the lines and you get the answers right, and then you write in full complete sentences. It doesn't need to be extremely long, bullet points, but it should be in complete sentence. And that's question 1 carries 4 marks, and you're expected to spend 5 minutes. Only 5 minutes on question 1. Give your first statement full sentences, each one sentences, and give your answers, and then you get your 4 marks. Then we'll move to question 2. Question 2 is the language technique question. The language technique question, which is you are supposed to spend 10 minutes on this. It has 8 marks, and you have to write 2 paragraphs. 2 paragraphs. Watch my previous video. If you watch my previous video on language techniques and language structure, you will understand the difference between question 2 and question 3. Go back to my video, watch it so that you can get exactly what you're going to do in question 2. Question 3 is a structural question, is this language structure questions. Quite different from language techniques. Is structure. We're talking about you dividing the passage into 3. Does it start, the middle, and then the end? How did it start? How was it? How did it begin? How did it end? My suggestion for you are to spend 10 minutes on this question. Is the same marks with question 2, 8 marks, and you are asked to write 2 paragraphs. So you can also use the 5 minutes for the first paragraph, 5 minutes for the second paragraph. The structure, the opening, how did it start? Then what happened at the beginning? Was there a shift or something to the end? And some structural features, foreshadowing and suspense, repetition, all those things that are involved in the structural devices. That is what you should look at here. So I would suggest that you look at the first paragraph of the extract, look at it, you can pick some things from there, and then you just oppose it with the words from the second paragraph or something from the second paragraph, and then you bring out the differences. What is different? What is unique about the first and the second paragraph? What has changed? Then all over you go to the middle, bring out some things, and at the end you tell us how it ended, and you can bring out some structural devices used by the writer, and then you write it, and then you have made up your question 3 for your structural paragraph. Then question 4 is a student statement. They always ask you to either agree or disagree. I always tell my students to agree. You have to write 3 to 4 paragraphs. It's 15 minutes. You're supposed to spend 15 minutes here, and then 20 marks is awarded for this question. Student statement, I'll ask you to agree. Just look at the passage, look at it, understand it, and then agree with what they say and bring out evidence for it. But remember, you do not repeat any quotation that you have written in question 2, question 1, question 3. You do not repeat. Look for other structural interesting devices or language devices or any other thing that interests you that supports the student statement. Then you give your answers. Don't repeat quotations that you've written earlier. No repetition of any quotation. Everything in question 4 has to be brand new, but bring out evidence that supports your agreement with this question. Descriptive or narrative writing. I always think narrative writing is better. I always prefer my students to pick narrative writing because you can start from whatever part of the story you want and then end it. You can pick any story. It's more flexible. It's not like descriptive that is a bit rigid. So when you are doing a descriptive, if you are going with a descriptive, always start with your setting, your weather. Start with what is not obvious in the picture. Start with what is not so obvious in the picture. You need to dip deeper into the picture and find something. Then you can talk about your atmosphere, your mood. Basically, your setting and your weather will bring out the atmosphere and the mood. Talk about the central focus. Now you can now focus on what is obvious later. And then talk about the feelings. And then there should be a slight change, a change. If there's no change, then you're not writing a descriptive writing. So there should be a change. Either the weather became cooler or hotter or something changed in your character. However, it is for narrative writing, you begin with your setting and your weather with a pathetic fallacy, okay? And then you can start building up your characters. Tell us your character goes on an adventure, what happened to your character, so that you introduce your problem in your third paragraph. How did your character try to solve this problem? What did he do or did not do? Then the resolution, what the problem solved? Was everything fine at the end? Or probably you want to give us a suspense. Probably from that, something changed and something happened and it even became worse. There should be a change in your character or your story. So that is for narrative and descriptive. 2 choices, pick one, 5 to 6 paragraphs, and you'll be awarded 40 marks for this question. Okay, and I want to talk about the 2026 update. So your question 1, which I said earlier that you're meant to write 4 statements, no quotations. For 2026, you'll be given multi-choice question. You'll be asked to tick the correct one. I think it's a bit easier if you look at it. It's easier now than you just writing 4 statements. Now they will give you statements and you will tick which one is true or which one is correct. So you have to tick each one from each section which is correct. And then for question 2, there's no change. It's still a language technique question where you talk about your semantic field, your extended metaphor, and all the language techniques over there. Then for question 3, there's a bit of change. This change is to enable you focus on the main point. Now the change is, the wording change is, how does the writer use his language to create tension? So now you're going to focus on the tension. I think with the wording changes, make it easier for you to grasp and understand and comprehend and interpret the passage. So they want you to focus on the tension. Where did it become hot, and what changed? Where was the shift? And then for question 4, it's also a wording change. Now they want you to tell us, to what extent do you agree? So give us points and evidence that shows that you agree with the statement. So it's not just a student statement anymore. They're going to bring out a question and ask you, to what extent do you agree? And then for question 5, for the descriptive writing, remember your question 5 is 2 sections. Descriptive is section 2 rather. Remember your question 5. Where is your section 2, where you are given 2 options between descriptive and narrative? Narrative writing remained the same, but for descriptive writing, there's a wording change again, where instead of saying for you to describe a particular picture or something, you are being asked to use your imagination. So they want you to just use the picture as a guide, but you can imagine wide, but let it relate to the picture. So for 2026 update, is just some wording change to make it easier for you to understand and write. So I think that's a really good news though. So remember, when you are doing your GCSE paper 1, remember to be strategic. Don't be tense, no tension. Be strategic with your time. Be strategic with your answers. Know that your question 1, 4 statement, your question 2, 2 paragraphs talking about the language techniques, your question 3 talking about structural language futures. Then you have to write 2 paragraphs. Know that your question 4 is for you to agree or disagree, which I said you can agree, which is easier for you to get points from the passage. Remember, no repetition of quotation from the earlier questions. And then you can go to your section B, where you have 2 choices to pick, whether descriptive or narrative. Rather, I also advise you to pick narrative, whatever you like. And also know that your teachers are expecting you to write well. Focus on the structures, the techniques in each question that you are asked to. No repetition of quotation from any of the questions. Use your paragraphs and use your time judiciously. And